Your daughter was found. Homeless girl's bone-chilling secret leaves billionaire haunting forever. In the inky shadows of a dilapidated alleyway, hope flickered like a dying candle. A figure trembled in the corner, wrapped in torn, filthy rags. A girl, no older than 12, her wide eyes gleaming with the haunted look of something not fully human. News spread like wildfire. The daughter of a tech billionaire, presumed dead for over a year, had emerged from the darkness. But what came next would chill everyone to the bone. As the chilling wind whispered around her, this girl held secrets deeper than the city's cavernous underbelly. Drenched in grime and lost memories, she was more than just a missing child, she was a ghost haunting her father's soul. In hushed tones, onlookers murmured near the police barricade, their breaths clouding the freezing air. What happened to her out there? She looks different. As they leaned in, their eyes widened, lips trembling from a mix of shock and fear. Just then, a man stepped forward, face pale and trembling. You don't understand. This is no ordinary child. His words sliced through the murmurs, but there was something unsettling about his urgency, almost frantic. She glared at him with eyes that sparkled like shards of ice, and all at once, silence engulfed the crowd. What exactly had this girl seen under the flickering streetlights? Or worse, what had seen her? The questions haunted every observer, feeding their collective dread. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And as the crowd parted, the girl took a step forward, revealing a jagged scar running down her wrist, a brutal reminder that whatever she'd faced had left her marked. Gasps erupted around her, the tension so thick you could feel it. In that moment, time froze. The whisper of the wind turned into a howl, carrying the faint echo of laughter from somewhere deep within the shadows. What lied ahead? A mystery hidden, a truth that could shatter the world of the wealthy, a sinister presence that might not be finished with her yet. As the girl raised her head slowly, her lips curled into a chilling smile, there was only one thing on everyone's mind: what was she about to reveal? The girl's chilling smile stretched across her face, a mask of innocence that belied the horrors lurking behind her eyes. The crowd apprehensively held their breath, some stepping back, as if the air itself carried the weight of unseen dread. This was not just a reunion, it was a reckoning. Listen to me, she shouted, her voice unexpectedly strong for one so small. I know things that will make your skin crawl. Her words hung heavy in the frigid air, and disbelief rippled through the throng. Few could fathom what secrets a child in rags could possibly hold. But as she stood there, the shadows behind her began to shift, swirling like dark smoke, and a sense of unease settled over the spectators. Eyes darted around, seeking reassurance from one another, yet finding none. In that moment, it became clear, this wasn't merely a lost girl returning home. This was a harbinger of something much darker. What have they done to you? A woman in the front shouted, her voice trembling. The girl's eyes sparkled with a knowing glint. I saw people, she began, her voice lowering to a whisper that made ears strain to catch every word. They took me, and they were not alone. Whispers broke out, rippling through the crowd. The implications of her words twisted and turned in the air, each one a new fear rising. The man who had stepped forward earlier was still trembling, now clearly agitated. No. You mustn't say this, he implored, pulling at his hair. We need to keep this quiet. The desperation in his voice sent a rattle through the crowd, igniting curiosity and fear. What had really happened during her disappearance? The girl's gaze held steady, unfazed by the chaos around her. Her next words would strike a jarring chord. The darkness has eyes, they are everywhere. They saw me. They saw all of us. The crowd gasped collectively, the air thick with apprehension, each soul present feeling the inexplicable weight of her declaration. Suddenly, a commotion broke out beyond the barricades, the sound of sirens blaring in the distance. Police cars pulled up like thunderclouds on the horizon, and uniformed officers rushed forward with urgency. But it was the girl who seemed to seize control of the scene, as if the officers were mere pawns in a game of her design. "Help me," she pleaded, raising her arms. "I need to tell you everything before it's too late." The words slipped through the crowd like water in sand, and a shudder ran down the spine of each onlooker. The mysterious aura around her pulsed, almost intoxicating. Unsure whether she was savior or specter, they watched, captivated and horrified. With each beat of her heart, the tension mounted, and then it happened, a shadow detached itself from the alley walls, creeping closer. As the crowd shrank back in fear, the girl's expression hardened. "You're too late, they know I'm here." With those words hanging ominously in the air, the sirens blared louder, almost in response to a distant threat. What was coming? And who or what had she been hiding from? As the officers drew closer, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern, the girl's eyes flared with a desperate, urgent intensity. What dark truth danced on the precipice of revelation? What shadows hovered just beyond the flickering streetlights? The moment hung heavy between them, a dark promise of chaos. The question echoed in the mind of every observer: were they ready for the truth she was about to unravel? And then in the crowd's collective gasp, a whisper emerged: "It begins now." The crowd held its breath, every heartbeat echoing in the tense air. The girl's voice faded, her declaration lingering like a forgotten song. In the distance, the sirens pierced through the night, a mad cacophony of urgency and dread, but it was the creeping shadow that drew everyone's attention. Suddenly, a gasping gasp rippled through the crowd, a flash of movement catching their eye. A nameless figure flickered at the edge of the gathering, a tall silhouette clad in dark clothing that blended seamlessly with the shadows. The figure shifted, shifting closer, its attention locked on the girl whose tiny frame stood defiantly against the night. "Stay back!" A police officer barked as he tried to break through the raucous crowd, but the warnings appeared to fall on deaf ears. The people's focus remained fixated on the girl, who seemed unfazed by the approaching dread. They were drawn to her, magnetized by her chilling energy. "Why were you taken?" someone shouted, tightening the knot of suspense blooming in the air. The words seemed to pull the girl from her trance. She pivoted slightly, her small form casting an elongated shadow on the cobblestones. "They wanted to know my secrets," she replied, her voice eerily calm. "And I didn't tell them yet." A collective shudder ran through the crowd. Gasps bubbled up, panic rising like a tide caught between fear and the need for answers. People began to inch away from the approaching figure, a primal instinct telling them that danger was near. The girl raised her hands again, the urgency growing in her expression. "They will find me, you have to listen." The darkness seemed to respond, coiling silently around her, as though it were alive, feeding on the fear that clung to the throng. Whispers cascaded through the audience. What if she was right? What if shadows had ears, as she claimed? "What are you doing?" Another man from the crowd called out, his voice betraying confusion and fear. "Are you trying to scare us?" But doubt quickly flicked through as stony stares met frightened glances. "I know what I saw," the girl shouted, her voice slicing through the murmurings. "They are watching us all. They know where we are." That's when the shape stepping from the fringes of darkness revealed itself fully. A grinning man, wearing an unsettlingly casual smile, stepped into the flickering streetlight, his eyes gleamed with malicious delight. "Ah, little dove," he chimed, his voice smooth like honey covered in thorns. "Did you miss me?" In the crowd, a collective tension tightened like a noose. Fear seeped into every corner, curling around hearts and minds. Who was he? What connection did he have with the girl? Dread pulsed through the air, thick and suffocating. Run! A woman screamed, and for a brief moment, chaos erupted. People shoved and stumbled, desperate to flee the uncertainty that clawed at their backs, but the girl remained fixed, unwavering. No! She cried out, her voice cutting through the panic. He can't take you too. I have to tell you. The man stepped closer, a sinister smirk on his face. But why ruin their fun? They've been so eager to play. Just like you. As his laughter echoed through the night, the crowd froze, certainty slipping through their fingers. What game was being played? Who were these players? And in that heightened moment of panic, right before the night erupted, a revelation hung heavily in the air. Do you believe in shadows? The girl whispered to the crowd, an impossible challenge that made hearts race. Each face bore witness to the haunting truth spiraling out from the darkness. Something was about to break loose, something that might just change everything. What did she mean? The crowd turned to the girl, searching for answers as the edges of the world seemed to close in. What game were they about to play, and who would survive to tell the tale? The panic broke out like an overturned beehive. People surged forward, desperate to escape the chilling presence of the man in the shadows. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with terror. The sirens wailed louder now, blending with the frantic cries of the crowd. Amid the chaos, the girl shouted again, her voice cutting through the noise. You don't understand. They're not just coming for me, they want all of you. Her eyes flared with a fierce intensity, locking onto the figure before her. The man smiled wider, as if her fear was an exhilarating drink, and he was gulping it down greedily. I do love a good game, he said, glancing over the throng, who now looked like panicked sheep. But why don't we play it together? Run! Another voice called, but the girl stood her ground, grounding herself against the clamor. She took a step closer to the man, unwavering. You think you can take me again? You think I'll let you? The crowd watched, a mix of horror and curiosity gripping them. The man narrowed his gaze, his expression shifting from amused to intrigued. Ah, you've changed, little dove. I admire your spark. Time seemed to stretch in that instant, the tension thickening like fog that refused to lift. More police cars screeched around the corner, their lights flashing red and blue, illuminating the terrified faces in sporadic bursts. The officers jumped out with weapons drawn, calling for everyone to disperse. Get back! An officer shouted, pointing his gun toward the man, but he merely laughed, a sound that sent shivers through the air. You think metal can stop what is coming for you? You're just delaying the inevitable. And then, just like that, he disappeared. One moment he was there, gleaming smile and all. The next, he was swallowed by darkness, the only evidence of his presence being the lingering sense of dread cascading through the crowd. Confusion gripped the audience. The girl staggered back, her face pale but fierce. We have to move. They're close. The officers rushed toward her. What do you mean? Who are they? They're the shadows, she cried, her voice straining against the clamor of fleeing bodies. They've been watching from the beginning. We can't leave, they'll pick us off one by one. Their expressions morphed into disbelief, eyes darting around, uncertain. Somewhere in the distance, faint whispers carried through the night. Callous and haunting, they echoed, chilling the bones of those who heard. What do you know, little girl? What secrets do you carry? Someone yelled from the crowd, a mixture of disbelief and desperate curiosity pushing through the fear. They know everything, she pleaded, clenching her fists against her chest. We're in danger, more than you realize. If we split up, we are lost. Suddenly, the flickering streetlight buzzed to life, casting an eerie glow that enveloped the girl. Her shadow twisted oddly against the cobbles, and it wasn't just her fear that clung to the air, it was something darker, something waiting behind the shimmering veil. Then came the loud crack of a gunshot. The sound sliced through the night, followed by a commotion erupting from the far edge of the street. A scream pierced the tense atmosphere, followed by frantic footsteps echoing from the shadows. The girl's face drained of color. No, not now, but it was too late. The shadows moved. They swirled and snaked through the crowd, tendrils of darkness reaching out, wrapping around unsuspecting legs, pulling people back into the void. Panic rose again, this time fully igniting the raw fear buried deep in their chests. The crowd surged again, pushing toward safety, but could anyone escape the darkness that had claimed the night? Stay together. One officer shouted, but those words felt feeble against the sweeping darkness. Amid the chaos, the girl's voice rang out one last time. You have to trust me. We need to face them together. I can't. As her scream echoed off the walls, the air grew still. The man's laughter rippled through the night once more, a cruel reminder of the unfolding nightmare. Just then, something shifted in. The weight of the night. The shadows surged forward. No one had ever truly believed in them until this moment. And as the crowd turned to flee, one question hung in the air: what secrets had the girl kept, and would they survive to unravel the truth before it was too late? The chaos intensified as the shadows wrapped tighter around the crowd, pulling people into engulfing darkness. Cries echoed through the night, desperate and shrill. The girl's heart pounded in her chest, raw urgency feeding her instincts. Together! She yelled, her voice cutting through the rising tide of terror. We can fight them back. But fear had a powerful grip. People jostled and shoved, seeking to escape, seeking to find safety in numbers, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond the flickering streetlight. Some tripped, yanked down by the tendrils that grew more aggressive. The officers were scrambling to maintain order, hollering commands that seemed to dissolve into the air like mist. Form a line. Back to back. One officer ordered, trying to reclaim control, but his words were swallowed by the panic swirling around him. The shadows writhed, their forms indistinct yet undeniably alive. They snaked through the chaos, stretching like fingers reaching for drawn prey. The girl could feel their chill, creeping up her skin, tightening around her throat. She had to do something or they would all be lost, and then it happened. One officer managed to squeeze off another shot. The bullet struck something in the darkness, startling a scream from somewhere deep within it. The shadows quivered as if in pain, the thick air crackling with an energy that made the hairs on the girl's neck stand on end. What was that? Shouted another bystander, eyes wide with horror. Whatever it is, it bleeds. The officer who shot hollered, panic creeping into his voice. Don't aim for the shadows. The girl shouted. They're not solid. Look for where they're pulling people in. Just then, the sirens blaring from half a dozen cruisers seemed to intensify, but they were no comfort. With each wavering wail, the shadows twisted more violently, like angered serpents guarding their prey. The girl thrust her arm toward the darkness, summoning her courage. We have to work together. Fight back. Kick and scream. You can't let them pull you away. A man at the edge of the mass finally broke down, shouting in defiance. We're not going anywhere. You hear me? We will not be taken. That moment sparked something. Others joined him, shouting, clawing at the darkness, but it wasn't enough. The shadows tightened, hissing. They burned with a malevolence that contorted their forms into wretched shapes, flickering like the dying lights above. The officer who had first shouted for them to stay together stumbled backward, eyes glazed over with fear. They're everywhere. The girl glanced around frantically. Then, against the chaos, she noticed the flickering streetlight. It dimmed again for a brief heartbeat, and she felt a charge of instinct flicker inside her. If we can get to the light, it's our only chance. Those around her seemed to sense it too. A surge of energy moved through the group. They thrust their way toward the light, hands clutching at each other, desperate. But the shadows reacted instantly, shedding off the bodies they had captured to lash out at the one still standing firm. The girl jumped, her heart racing as she felt a grip on her ankle. A shadow, pulling with a strength she had never encountered. She stumbled, nearly falling, yet she managed to claw free, twisting around to regain her footing. "No!" she cried, dragging a few terrified onlookers with her. "Hold on to each other, don't let go." Behind them, a chorus of cries imploded into the night as darkness swallowed remnants of sanity. The fear felt palpable, thick and suffocating, yet still, they pressed on. Finally, they reached the streetlight, the warm glow wrapping around them like a protective veil. They stood there, gasping, their bodies trembling as fear seeped through their veins, but beyond the light, the shadows hovered, swaying angrily, as if plotting their next move. In that frozen moment, the girl felt something shift deep within her. A connection to the darkness. "It's more than just shadows," she whispered, pieces clicking into place in her mind. "They're looking for something. Those names. They call. The secrets we hide." People turned to her, confusion painted on their faces. "What do you mean?" Before she had a chance to explain, a chilling whisper slithered through the light, wrapping around them like smoke. It came from every direction, vibrant yet menacing. "You have only prolonged the inevitable. Secrets will shatter your defenses, and when they do, it will be your end." Her breath caught in her throat. The memories surged forward, the lost, the forgotten, those who had vanished too soon. And she realized the truth she had always tried to hide. As the shadows loomed closer, darkness enveloping them like a curtain ready to drop, one thought surged like wildfire through the girl's mind: what if her secret was the key to fighting back and the very reason they were all in danger? The shadows pulsed, a dark heartbeat throbbing in the night. The girl stood rigid, the horror of her revelation crashing against her like icy waves. She could sense the whispers rising in volume, an ominous chorus that seemed to peel back her very skin, exposing her deepest fears. "Secrets?" A woman shrieked beside her, clutching her son tighter, his wide eyes scanning the darkness for threats. "What secrets?" "I don't have any." The girl's heart raced. "I'm not saying," but the swirling darkness erupted, tendrils lashing out with renewed fury. People screamed as they clawed back toward the light. The officer, trembling, shouted, "We need to disperse. Get out of here. Don't." The girl surged forward, a desperate plea curling on her lips. "They'll only chase you. Stand firm." But chaos reigned. People surged away from the light, driven by fear, their screams punctuated by the hiss of shadows as they snatched at limbs and legs, pulling them back into a void that held no mercy. "Help! Please!" someone cried, their voice breaking as they were dragged into the seething darkness. The girl staggered. She couldn't just watch. "Fight back!" she cried out, reaching for the nearest person, a teenager, his face streaked with dirt and terror. "Hold on to me. We need to form a wall." In that instant, the lights flickered again, a spark of energy zipping through her. It was as if the streetlight knew, pulsating with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. "Let us go to the power," she urged, the thought sparking a last-bitten rally in the crowd. "We can channel this light. Use it against them." Hands found hers, and they stumbled forward as one, hearts drumming in sync. The darkness hissed even louder now, like wildfire hungry for flesh. Shadows flickered around them, and fear gripped her gut. Were they outpacing the darkness or just delaying the inevitable? Next to her, the teenager suddenly froze, eyes glued to something behind her. "No!" he gasped. "It's got you." Spinning around, she glanced back into the abyss, and there it was, a swirling mass, more tangible now, as though the shadows were coalescing into something more sinister. A face formed within them, its features ethereal yet familiar, flickering in and out like an old film reel. "Cassandra," it whispered, and her blood ran cold. Who are you?" she might have shouted. Instead, her voice was small, a fragile thing, but the figure lunged, tendrils unfurling, heartbreakingly close, and panic surged through her bones. Her secret. What if it was the link? Focus. The teenager gripped her wrist tighter. We need to concentrate on the light. The crowd, however, was losing faith. A wave of despair washed through them, flashes of people being pulled away. She saw one woman pulling her child just as the boy disappeared into the swirling mass. No! The girl screamed. We can't let them take anyone else. In that moment, it struck her a cipher she had been blind to before. The names they're drawn by our fears. She shouted above the chaos. But if we face them, acknowledge them, no. Someone shouted back, tears marking their dirt-streaked face. That's crazy. They'll consume us. Yet as she looked into the faces around her, she saw flickers of recognition, of understanding. They all held secrets, burdens they wished to hide. Together. We can't let them win, let them take us back. A collective intake of breath filled the air, a fragile determination sprouting from the depths of despair. On three. She said, grounding herself in the essence of hope. 1, 2, 3. Their voices unified, calling out each of their secrets, flinging them into the darkness, fear of abandonment, guilt, shame. It resonated through the air, crackling like static, and all at once, the shadows seemed to waver, the entity lurking in the shadows twisted, shrieking in frustration, and the girl noticed something else, a flicker in the mass, something that looked like light. What is that? She wondered aloud, stepping closer to the fray as the whispers shifted in pitch, a song of both agony and defiance, but before she could reach out, the shadows surged, a wave of darkness colliding against them, and the world spun away, shadows clawing blindly, seeking to reclaim their lost prey. Just as she felt herself being pulled down, the flicker brightened, shooting gold sparks into the darkness. It's drawing them back. She screamed, hope igniting once more, and then, she began to understand the price of her secret. As the shadows pulled her closer to the void, the burgeoning light ignited within her too. All that remained was navigating the chaos and unraveling the truth before the darkness swallowed them whole. As the shadows closed in again, a chilling realization seized her, the light was both ally and enemy in this battle. Would she be able to harness its power, or would it consume them all? In the depths of her heart, she felt a tremor, the first stirrings of rebellion against the darkness. But that revelation felt terrifyingly incomplete. Was her hidden truth powerful enough to be their salvation, or their end? The darkness writhed like a living thing, encroaching from all sides. Each tendril seemed to grasp at her, hungry to drag her back into the depths of despair. Cassandra's heart hammered in her chest. She could feel the flicker of light inside her, pulsating in rhythm with her fear. Was it hope or an insidious lure? Hold on. Keep chanting your secrets. She yelled. She could scarcely hear herself over the growing cacophony of screams and cries, but she forced her voice above the chaos, hoping others would follow her lead. Beside her, the teenager flickered back to life, nudged by her determination. With sweat glistening on his brow, he shouted his greatest fear, I'm not good enough. It rang out like a gunshot, sharp and piercing. One by one, others joined in, rattling off their burdens into the abysmal night. I'm ashamed of my past. I'm terrified of being alone. The words tumbled from their lips, each confession a grain of sand slipped through the hourglass of time, pulling at the very fabric of the shadows, and then something shifted. As the chaotic chorus swelled, the collective fear they had dragged forward began to morph. It was no longer an invocation of their weaknesses. It transformed into something more vibrant, almost beautiful, a rallying cry, a testament of shared struggle. Together. We are stronger. Cassandra shouted, voice raw with conviction. And suddenly, bright points of light sparked within those whispering shadows, ignited by the shared weight of their truths. The shadowy figure, that face she recognized but feared, shrieked as the light pushed against it. The agony of its sound cut through her, a desperate echo of her own inner turmoil. Was this the manifestation of her fears? A reflection of her guilt? The flickering light climbed, illuminating the ground around them, pushing the darkness back inch by inch. Cassandra could hear a different tune in the silence, a melody of hope intertwining with the chaos. We can break free. But even as they stood, united in their frailty, tendrils of darkness snuck through their defenses, slithering towards the weakest hearts, the ones who hesitated to join their verbal fight. She could see a woman, wild-eyed and trembling, pulling back ever so slightly. That start of retreat threatened to tip the fragile balance. Cassandra stumbled towards her, shouting, "You matter. Your voice is needed." But the woman's face was pale, torn between despair and the fear of speaking her truth aloud. "What if they take me? What if they pull me down and swallow me whole? Then we go down fighting." Cassandra countered fiercely, catching sight of the way the others rallied at her words. Finally, the woman exhaled, tears brimming as she realized the stupidity in her terror. "I fear the truth," she finally confessed, "the truth of my mistakes." At once, a beam of light shot forth, bursting through the darkness with a force that sent the tendrils recoiling. It felt like the dawn breaking over a shadowed horizon, clashing brilliantly against the darkness, more like stars igniting in a fearful sky. Voices erupted, an explosion of revelations as each shared their burdens. Cassandra felt the heaviness lift, the energy pulsing through their intertwined hands, resonating with every truth revealed. Then it happened. An eye of clarity opened in the mass of shadows, revealing deep beneath the swirling chaos. With a hissing sound, the shadows began to coalesce around the central darkness, where a new shape emerged, something far larger and more frightening, absorbing their shared fears like a ravenous beast hungry for despair. With a heart-racing realization, Cassandra understood. The entity wasn't just a representation of her shadows, it was fed by them, their collective struggle and secrets, twisting into something horrifying. "We're feeding it," she cried, horror dawning as the shadows shifted to snatch at her again, greedily reaching for new fears to devour. "What do we do?" shouted the teenager, panic twisting his face. Cassandra knew, deep in her bones. They had to face the truth together, but now it felt monumental, climbing a steep cliff that threatened to crumble beneath their feet. Could they truly summon the light from within, or would it leave them exposed to the darkness? With one final breath, she straightened, ready to embrace the reckoning. In that moment, she knew she had to uncover her deepest, darkest truth before it consumed her. As the shadows roared, a burning question loomed. What if the power of light she felt inside was tied to the very fear that had kept her silent all this time? Would facing it lead them to salvation or ruin? The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, each shudder pulling at the edges of their resolve. Cassandra squeezed the hand surrounding hers, feeling the warmth against the icy grip near her heart. They were running out of time. The entity now loomed before them, a monstrous silhouette absorbing their fears like a vacuum, dark tendrils switching and curling, searching for new victims. "We're not going to let it win," Cassandra shouted, determination flaring inside her. "We share our truths. We take away its power." The teenager and the woman nodded, eyes wide but resolute. One by one, the others began to speak again, their fears now mingling with a newfound courage. "I'm scared of failing," someone bolted out. "I feel invisible," called another. To Cassandra, it was like a chain reaction. The words wove together, each confession simultaneously lighting them up and creating a ripple of electric energy through their arms. The combined strength gave her hope, but she could feel the entity regrouping, growing more ravenous and vengeful, ready to attack. A flash of light burst from their intertwined hands, a blinding explosion that momentarily pushed back the encroaching darkness. But Cassandra knew that the victory would be fleeting unless she spoke her own heart. The weight of her greatest fear sat heavily within her, a stone that dragged at her very soul. "I am afraid of being unloved," she stammered, every word nearly choking in her throat. The instant she uttered it, cold terror shot through her, but it was followed by a rush of warmth from the others. They responded intuitively, as if their hearts recognized the pain of her truth. The echoes of their voices grew louder, compelling the shadows back, light pouring out of their joined hands like rays of a sunrise. "You are worthy," shouted the woman, surrounded by tears. "We all are." With each declaration, the monstrous entity shrieked, the sound a jarring crescendo that filled the very air with despair. There was no denying it now, their fears were fueling its rage. Cassandra realized the horrifying truth behind her greatest fear. It had not stemmed from an absence of love, but rather the searing ache of being abandoned, of never being enough. The realization struck her like a lightning bolt: if she didn't confront it, the darkness would consume her. I am enough. I deserve love. She yelled, the words bursting from her like molten steel. The shadows recoiled at her proclamation, transforming into swirling masses of blinding light and terrifying darkness, battling for dominance. The others joined her chorus, their fears morphing into declarations. Each confession sent tremors through the air, the ground shifting underfoot as the shifting entity wavered. It was going to explode. Face it. Together. She urged, and the reaction was immediate. Hands tightened, breath synced, and a brilliant light surged forth with one purpose. Cassandra felt the darkness fall back, retreating into the void, but with one last desperate gasp, the creature reached for her, the nexus of the fear that had birthed it. What are you without your fears? It shrieked in a haunting voice. The shadows lunged, clawing at her with icy fingers of dread. I am strong. I am loved. I am. But as the shadows pulled her closer, she felt the boundary of her resolve starting to crack, the darkness whispering terrible secrets of worthlessness and shame. In that heartbeat, she wondered, would this all come crashing down? Could they push through this final test, or was she destined to become just another story swallowed by the night? The air crackled with tension as the shadows surged forward, hungry for that resolution. Would the light sustain them, or would Cassandra's admission pull them all into oblivion? With the shadow spiraling towards her, darkness reached for her heart, and the very fabric of her light trembled in response. Could she hold on long enough to free them all? The question echoed ominously. What if, in lighting her path, it extinguished the very fire inside? As the darkness lunged at Cassandra, time felt suspended, like the quiet before a storm, just waiting for the first drop of rain to shatter the silence. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears, drowning out the screams of despair that filled the air around her. The sensations collided within her. Fear waged war against hope. This was it, the moment the shadows might consume her, maybe take the others too. In her mind, she screamed for strength. Not like this. She thought, reaching deeper within herself. The shadows clawed at her spirit, relentless and cold, but something within shifted, a flicker of light, a whisper of power stirring in her core. You are enough, echoed her own voice, this time infused with unyielding resolve. The entity twisted and writhed, its form fluctuating between terror and rage as if it could sense her inner turmoil. What do you know of love? It spat, its voice echoing like a death knell. You've only felt rejection. Your insecurities breed shadows. You will never conquer me. I've felt it too. Cassandra roared back, her defiance igniting the words like matches to gasoline. I know the pain of sadness. I know what it means to fear being left behind. But I also know how to love. I can face the darkness. There was a crackle of energy following her declarations, a brightness that brightened her surroundings, illuminating the terrified faces of her companions. That spark ignited a chorus. We are strong. The teenager shouted, his voice shaking but unwavering. We are loved. The woman beside him added, her eyes glistening with renewed spirit. Each shout became a building block, creating an unbreakable wall against the shadows that threatened to ensnare them. It was a wave of collective identity, a surge of primal hope that crackled in the air, shimmering brighter with every uttered truth. For a moment, the swirling darkness stuttered, uncertain how to attack this sudden force emerging from the hearts of the gathered. Together. Cassandra shouted, her voice unyielding. Shine your light. And then it erupted. The bolt of light from their hands surged forth, cutting through the shadows, resembling a lighthouse piercing an out-of-control storm. Surrounded by this magnificent brilliance, Cassandra felt herself rising. A tidal wave of empowerment washed over them, banishing the darkness inch by anguished inch, the room vibrating with an otherworldly hum, but even as their light grew stronger, the shadows shrieked with a fury, an anguished wail that shook the very fabric of their reality. They remained coiled like snakes, flickers of despair attempting to reach out, attempting to find a crack in their armor. Zoning in on their deepest fears became its last-ditch effort. In the eye of the storm, Cassandra gasped as a chilling realization seized her. Can we truly conquer our fears? She thought, her grip tightening around her friends. Or will this light merely cast new shadows? Another flicker pierced through her heart, the notion that their victory might be hollow, a temporary illusion masquerading in bright colors. The shadows were falling back, yes, but how long before they regrouped? There was a fragility in their triumph that left a lump in her throat. Face it, the entity echoed, now a whispering hiss. You're on borrowed time. You have not crushed me yet. Cassandra looked to her companions, determination deepening in their eyes, but doubt lingered like a fog. What if all their hopes were in vain? Would they risk it all only to be devoured once more? She felt a chill creep up her spine as her heart thumped harder, resolution battling trepidation in the air thick as tar. No longer could she hide from the truth that was snaking its way in. What if, as they fought the shadows outside, deeper darkness brewed within? If fear was a dance between light and shadow, what lay beneath it waiting? The shadows twitched, bolstered by their struggle, and as the light flickered, doubt began to nestle within Cassandra's breast. She felt the darkness whispering sweetly, pulling her into the depths of uncertainty. Could this desperate last fight against the shadows cost them their very souls? What, truly, would they become in their pursuit of freedom? As she took a deep breath, she felt the shadows coiling tighter. With one last push, would the glimmer of hope ignite their path, or would fury fuse within the darkness? And the uncertainty felt heavy. Could they brave the unknown, or were they doomed to repeat the cycle of fear and despair? The shadows throbbed with pulsating energy, angry and eager, looming like a storm ready to devour. Cassandra stood firm, a flicker of fiery resolve burning in her heart. Holding tight to the hands around her, she felt their combined strength pulsing like electricity, hope and fear intertwined like a live wire about to spark. Remember who you are, she shouted, her voice breaking through the tumultuous roar of despair. It was as if each word became a shield, creating a little bubble of light in which they could gather their courage. The shadows hissed, the fury directed at her words blending with ominous whispers that clawed at their resolve, and yet, the bright spark of rebellion flickered within them. We are not afraid. The teenager beside her yelled, confidence lighting up his features. We are not your prey. Others rallied, clenching their fists, some finding their voices beyond the grip of fear, and they began to chant together. I am worthy. I deserve love. I am enough. Each shout cascaded through the night, building strength, each truth uttered binding them closer and drawing the light forth. The air crackled with vibrant energy as blinding orbs broke through the shadows, igniting a battlefield of brilliance. The figure lost shape within its swirling mass, the shadowy form screeching in rage as light pierced through its heart. Yet the darkness surged back in fury, tearing at their confidence, tempting them to falter like it had before. But they pressed on. Stay strong. Don't give in. Cassandra shouted, locking eyes with those around her, determination pooling in their faces. Her heart raced as she felt threads of light reaching toward her, racing toward her greatest fear, the one that had been buried deep for so long. Together. We can do this. They were a wave of resolve crashing against the tides of darkness, the chaos around them finally pushing back. Desperation and anger intertwined. The shadows sneered, lunging toward those who hesitated, but the brilliant chorus sang loud and proud. We share our burdens. A woman called out, her voice breaking through. Together, we stand tall. Cassandra's breath caught, the energy around her shifting and swelling, a surge that felt like a tide. With every confession, the shadows writhed, retreating slowly. But they were not defeated yet. In horror, Cassandra felt something reaching out from the darkness, a familiar chill that rattled through her bones. It felt like a heartbeat, it was feeding off their fears. "Face your truth," she cried, forcing herself to confront the ghost that haunted her heart. The energy pressed closer, wrapping its icy tendrils around her throat, whispering dreadful secrets in her ears. But she steadied herself, resisting the urge to pull away. "I'm afraid I will always be alone," she screamed, her voice echoing fiercely in the void, the release of the words dissolving the icy grip around her heart. "But I am not alone now. I choose light." A sudden crack filled the air, echoing against the chaos around them. The entity shrieked a horrifying wail that sent tremors through the ground, its shadowy form thrashing wildly as the light tightened its hold. "More!" someone shouted, and they all joined in, each fear becoming a foundation, a pillar against the encroaching darkness. "I fear rejection. I fear failure. I fear abandonment." The shadows screeched in torment as the light began to break free, illuminating even the darkest corners of their souls. Cassandra surged forward with newfound strength. "We are worthy of love. We are enough," she cried, voice sharp and vulnerable, piercing through the layers of despair that surrounded them. Though uncertainty loomed like a storm, the light ignited brighter with each confession. The shadows were no more than wisps now, faltering and flickering as truth hit back. And as they pressed deeper, as every secret was unleashed, a brilliant radiance exploded outward, a profound warmth enveloped them, shooting beams of light that pierced through the darkness like arrows. "Together, we rise," they shouted, and the shadows trembled once more, reeling back in terror, the darkness shivering under the weight of their combined resolve. The entity wailed in anguish, a last desperate plunge of shadows breaking apart under the light like shattered glass. They fought back, their light magnifying and melded with the cries of strength of many. With one final confession that reverberated deeper than the rest, in a unified front, they chanted together, "We are free. We are loved. We are whole." With that outpouring, the remnants of darkness quivered and shrieked, the manifestation of fears melting away like fog under the sun, relinquishing grasp. Cassandra felt the shadows dissipate, the air sparkling with light, weight lifting as clarity washed over her like a tide. The oppressive heaviness shattered in that moment of truth, leaving warmth and survival in its place, and just like that, it was over. The crowd stood together in an embrace of warmth. Expressions shifted from fear to relief, the echoes of hope resounding all around. Laughter bloomed among tears, voices softened as they turned to one another. Cassandra blinked, joy threading through her chest as disbelief settled in. They had faced the fear, confronted the darkness, and emerged into the light, each of them reflecting a new beginning in their eyes. "Together, we faced it," she said softly, acknowledging each heart that had fought with her. The shadows were just that now, shadows that no longer held power, only reminders of strength and bravery found in vulnerability. And as the crowd departed, stepping into the cozy embrace of dawn, Cassandra knew they had won. All those voices echoed with unbreakable resolve, bonds forged in battle against that which sought to devour them. As she looked back at the alley that had held so much darkness, she felt a gentle smile curve her lips, no longer just a ghost, but a girl alive, resolute, filled to the brim with light. This was the end of one story, the beginning of so many more. Now, if you're feeling this moment and this freedom, there is something you must do. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that promise to ignite your heart. Smash that like button now, feed the algorithm and spread this energy. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let us talk about what it meant for you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The message of light has to reach those you love. This is the moment to show your support. Make your voice count.